Okay, so I'm finally made it to Hanoi. It's sweltering,
It is.
and I've just connected with Josh Kempinski, who's from Fauna and Flora International, a couple of weeks in post, who's been orienting me and helping me figure out how to get around Hanoi, Vietnam, the area, and who to interview. Josh, thanks very much. You've been a superstar already, and we've only just started to get to know each other.
Thank you very much.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the work of FFI in Vietnam, your new role, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. FFI is a UK-based conservation NGO working throughout the world in all continents. We've been in Vietnam since the mid-90s. We have a few sites around the country, mostly in the north of Vietnam. It's been international hotspot for biodiversity, the limestone forest of northern Vietnam. It's been our focus for over a decade. We've been sort of tracking PES and REDD work from the beginning, and wondering what's the entry point for FFI. Is it something we want to get involved in? Does it fit in with our strategy, our core beliefs? We worked very closely with the Department of Forests on writing the RPIN, which was for the World Bank FCPF RED program, and since then we've been, as I say, we've been kind of like monitoring the situation, and then in the last sort of few months we've decided that it is something that we want to get involved in more seriously, mostly because we've had a lot of success and a lot of international attention with regard to our pilot RED program in Aceh and Sumatra, which is the first fully fledged RED pilot program in the world.
This is about 750,000
exactly
hectares.
750,000 hectares of forest that was essentially going to be logged at some stage. A lot of oil palm and so forth being big issues over there. And post tsunami, FFI worked with the government to develop a kind of a new strategy, a new direction for development over there. And the Achenese regional government, they have a devolved government, have pursued an agenda of sustainable development. There's a moratorium on logging, and they said, okay, let's protect the forest. We understand its values. How can we make it pay for itself in a way that's meaningful for us and the people? So, and yeah, have engaged with RED, and obviously they've taken things much further there than most other countries. But it's exciting, and a lot of lessons learned from there. Things that are working extremely well. Things that are like, some things went ahead very quickly. Other things that are catching up. But people around the world are regarding that as somewhere to look for how to, what we can learn for RED from there.
So you've been in post 2 weeks in Vietnam, but you've been here 6+ years. So you know the scene, you know the conservation scene.
Yeah.
So it sounds interesting from an FFI stroke broader global RED point of view. You're using the Aceh experience as a springboard into Vietnam. How do you see your role in Vietnam developing?
Well, I mean, the thing about RED is it's at the same time new and complicated, and at the same time what we've been doing for a long time. It's essentially a forest governance issue. It's about benefit sharing for local people. It's about collaborative and co-management approaches. It's about law enforcement. It's about protecting the forest. What's new is essentially the funding stream. Is that this money is going to come either from global markets, carbon markets, or directly from funds, bilateral funds, for protecting carbon in the form of standing forests. So conservation NGOs are or should be well placed to develop RED, because it's 90% what they've been doing, since their inception, internationally or within a country, with this added complexities of the whole kind of carbon issue. So that's the learning area. That's the space which all the conservation NGOs are catching up. Is okay, carbon markets. What does that mean? What does forest carbon mean? What do all these things mean? But most of the actual activities on the ground, in terms of engaging local government, working with local people, ensuring benefits, there's equity and transparency, trying to improve local implementation of like forest governance, but also at the policy level, what enabling environments required. These are the things that FFI has been doing, as I say, since the mid-90s. So we can do that. We're well placed. The big learning area is, okay, how does that tie in with the carbon side? What does that mean, the whole climate change aspect? So very exciting. And my job personally is to take from these pilots, these examples elsewhere in the world. There are a couple of places that aren't quite ahead as Aceh, but a little bit ahead of FFI. There's some work happening in the Philippines, in Cambodia. There's a couple of projects kicking off. FFI also has work in Kalimantan and Liberia. So it's incremental, but people are at slightly different steps, just ahead. And my job is to pull that all together and say, and what about the Vietnam context? Because of course, politically, socially, economically, the situation is so different in each country. There is going to be no one-size-fits-all red kind of silver bullet that's like, okay, this is how to do red in the world. It's much more like, this is kind of what we're talking about
at a national level.
Exactly.
Sure. Exactly. And I mean, so as I understand it, Vietnam's been to a certain degree a leader regionally in terms of Southeast Asia around RED and PES.
Absolutely.
Which is why the conference was picked here. So why the conference venue was picked for Hanoi. So within that context, what do you see the next few days of the conference being in terms of what you want to get out of it?
Well, Vietnam, very interesting actually. They PES has been piloted here. They brought in a government decree for piloting PES. Did 2 PES pilots, used the lessons learned from those pilots to write a law for national PES, all in the space of 2 years. So when the government embraces a concept like this, then things can move very swiftly, and so that's suddenly pushed Vietnam into a very exciting position, particularly for PES. RED is one stage behind that. We're now developing the pilots that will hopefully lead to, will influence national legislation and so forth, but very much the same sort of process. Government are engaged, they want NGOs to support them with pilots, they want that capacity building. And in terms of RED, World Bank, as I say, the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility, and UN RED are already active in Vietnam. And UN RED, I think, in the region are more kind of further ahead here than anywhere else. So sort of all in the space of a couple of years, it's gone from interesting ideas, PES, watershed services, PFES with the forest, RED, to suddenly being like there's national laws in place, there are programs on the ground, there are people saying this is what worked, this is what didn't work. So yeah, very, very exciting, and actually, absolutely ahead in the region. I think maybe because some other countries, Thailand, Malaysia, for example, maybe were slightly further ahead with forest governance success anyway. So maybe felt that they didn't need to engage so much, or felt that they already were going on the right path. Because Vietnam is very, very dynamic. Things are changing very quickly, and there is a gap. There's a space. There's a need, and the government recognises that need, and have basically given us the enabling environment to develop these processes. So it's exciting.
It's going to be a fascinating few days. Josh, we're going to catch up with you on a regular basis throughout the next few days, if that's okay. Make you one of the featured video bloggers.
Okay.
So that's all right. That's what we're here for. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Ben.